Hey everyone, Andrew Lopez here with Partner Channel OC, and we are here for a very special episode. I have two amazing people here. I have Marcia Reiner and I have Mr. Bruce Braveroff here. We're all together sharing some bourbon, talking a little bit about financial information, the good, the bad, and the ugly of it all. Real quick, I was a part of your conversation that you had a few weeks back, and I just thought we can come together and dive a little bit deeper into the good, bad, and the ugly of the financial information. So for all you tuning in, listen to us here. We're going to start off with the ugly. You thought I was starting off with the good, but we're starting off with the ugly to get
Turn
kicked
it
off
backwards,
here. So
start from the back.
when it comes to financial information in business, what is that ugly?
Well, there are three parts to your financials. Every business has three parts. And the ugly, to me, is the general ledger. That's where everybody does all of their work. And the person that keeps that is constantly fighting it. And you take pictures of that during the year in reporting. And you use that information for what's then called the bad, which is doing your taxes, or the good, which is your third-party audit reporting. So you have three pieces that should be managed by different people. And so we're going to start off talking about the general ledger.
Absolutely. And where my specialty comes in is that Bruce can get into the nitty-gritty and what is on the statements and where this information is laid down. And what I talk about is more of how the business owner uses that information and can pull data out of it to make great financial decisions.
Perfect.
And there are dashboards that the business owner should be using, that he's getting weekly reporting that shows where it shows where they're at, where their cash is at, what they're doing.
Are they tracking? Are they close to their goal? What shift can you make in one little area that can bring you closer or bring you back? How much will that shift cost you? So there's so much data in your financials, and it's really mining that data, understanding what you need to be focusing on, and how you can use that in your business to make great decisions.
I use a phrase with a lot of my clients that just makes them all shake their head. And that is, if you don't think you have too much information, you don't have enough. I can bury you in information. And that's why these dashboards are so important, because you can take key performance indicators and put them in a dashboard and have them where they show up on your phone, where they show up on the report, where you're watching those all of the time. And that part of your general ledger, you should be watching. You shouldn't be the one doing the work in the general ledger.
Yes, do not. If you're a business owner, this is not your specialty, I promise you. This is not the place that you need to be focusing on. You need to be focusing on the decisions from the data, not inputting the data. You need to have the professionals doing the data for you.
And there are really, really good outsourced people today to do that accounting for you. And with all of the systems that are in place, that accounting can be done for you, A, cheaper, and B, much, much better than you would be able to do it in-house most of the time. Because you've got somebody that all their company does is accounting. And all they do is maintain general ledgers, and they work with all of these dashboards and all of your information. And they'll even set up to where, okay, on Friday night before we go home, we're emailing out all of these reports. So,
And it's their specialty, not your specialty. The other thing about it is you want to simplify your financial life, really. You want to work in the most simplified way. You don't want to have 5 different credit cards and mismatching your personal assets with your business assets. You want to have it clean. But having that professional line everything up the first time for you so you know what categories each piece is going into, so you can extrapolate it later to work for you. That's the magic, and that's what you're doing. And then when you have the data entry at, my hourly rate is not a data entry rate. So if my hourly rate is $300 an hour and your staff or your accountant's hourly rate is $50 an hour for data entry, then that's a better use of that time than your own use. So you can focus on growing your business and doing the things that need to be done at your genius, at your price point.
with the partners that you can use, the way you can do this, somebody like me, once a month I sit down and go through the general ledger. I go through it and make sure that everything has been coded correctly or categorized correctly, because what'll happen is, I've got this with a client just that happened recently, is they were writing off, expensing all of their equipment. Well, the problem with that is, as far as the tax person is concerned, it doesn't make any difference. But if we capitalize it and depreciate it, that makes a big difference on the financial side and the audit side. It also makes a big difference even on your taxes when you go to figure cash flow. So it's where do these things go and how do you do it and what do you do? And somebody needs to be watching it that understands. And even the really good accountants I work with will call me and say, Bruce, do you want this here or there? Mm-hmm. Because it's never black and white. And the problem is you can do both. And a tax person will say expensing it or capitalizing it and depreciating it makes no difference to you in the long run. Well, they're just thinking about the tax consequences. It makes a big difference in the audit or your financial side, but it also makes a big difference on your taxes because if you go to do a government program, which uses your taxes, they'll add those numbers back into your cash flow. Mm-hmm. So that's where.
And then you as a business owner, that's not your job to make those decisions. You have to have a high level understanding, and then your job is really to bring in the experts that can help you use that data. And so you can look at your taxes and make good decisions, or you can look at your financial statements when you're trying to obtain money and get those pieces. But you know what Bruce is talking about can be a little confusing. But as the business owner, you just, again, need to know the high level and be smart enough and responsible enough to take your hands out of the books and give it to a professional.
Absolutely. Quick thing on the ugly, though, for those that might not fully know. So, Bruce, I know you're more of a nuts and bolts guy, and Marcia, you're more of a big picture strategist. So I know it's a complex topic, but to answer that ugly question from a quick nuts and bolts perspective, what does that look like?
It's the general ledger. It's where every transaction you do, whether it's cash, whether it's trade, whether it's credit, everything goes through one ledger in your business. And it's called the general ledger. And that is QuickBooks, simplified QuickBooks at its very basic part is your general ledger. Your accounting program's your general ledger. That's where the information is stored, it's cared for, and then at the end of periods, it should be locked down. So like when you do all of this stuff and at December 31st, everything's done, all of that information should be locked where it can never be touched again.
Here's what I think he's getting at, is why is it ugly? Because there's so much information on it. And if any of you have taken an accounting class, you know that it has to balance, right? So there's numbers coming in and the opposing numbers coming out. It's all got to zero out. It's your worst checkbook nightmare ever. And because there's so many moving parts and so many different things going on, it becomes an ugly task. And that's why we chose the ugly word, because there's so much going on.
I have seen one transaction for one of my clients be 6 entries on their accounting system.
Yes.
It's not one entry. It's 6 different entries. And it can be 12 different entries depending on what's going on.
Right, so you have to categorize it perfectly, and so you could take advantage of it later on. So it's got to come in, maybe something happened, and you've got part of that went to this department, part of that went to that department, part of that went to this department, and then to balance it out, this tool came in, that tool came in, and that tool came in. And so even though it was one order and one bill, you have to itemize everything on there, and it becomes the nightmare, which is why we call it the ugly side.